Hello again. I have a case study, interesting case study about restless legs. Now, what are restless legs? Well, this is a kind of an involuntary kicking of the legs when the client is asleep. It's not always when they're asleep, but that's usually the context. It's a strange phenomena. It's almost as if the legs want to keep the person awake, and so they will kick involuntarily. This woman came to me with these restless legs. She'd retired, so she was 60 something, and she'd had these restless legs for most of her life, since she was a young woman. And I just thought, this is fascinating, and it's also tragic that she's taken so long to come and see anybody about it. So I listened to her story. She said to me that she took a job when she was a young woman, and she found it very, very stressful, very difficult job, and that after about a week her legs started kicking involuntarily in bed and keeping her awake, and that she'd go to work the next day feeling very tired because she hadn't slept so well, which actually meant that she'd get less work done, and the job was even more stressful. And so she felt even more tired, and so the next night the legs would kick again, and so she'd be up again for more time in the night and not being able to sleep properly. And this carried on for a couple of weeks until she had enough, and she decided to quit her job. But the legs had carried on kicking for the rest of her life. And there had been times when it got better, but not completely, then it got worse. And now as she was retired, she was wondering, why are her legs still kicking? There's nothing to worry about, no stress in her life. And she wanted to go traveling and things like this. So she was very concerned. So I thought, okay, now something I'll often do when I work with clients is I want to bypass the conscious mind, which actually means not talking directly to the patient or the client, but to talk to the unconscious mind. For me, it's a very important thing to do. And there are various ways of doing that. You know, you can do it with the language patterns you use, the way you indirectly mark out suggestions, as with analog marking, or interspersal technique, as Ernest Rossi used to call it. Embedded commands, I think NLP called it. Or you can just talk in a metaphor, which bypasses the conscious mind. One way that I decided to do this was to talk to her legs. So it's a little bit similar to talking to the unconscious, but it's saying, okay, I don't want to talk to you, I'm talking to your legs. Now, to create a kind of a trance state, I wanted to kind of put into a state of shock a little bit, because shock is a trance state. And also humor. When you laugh at something, it's also a trance state. Because if you think about it, when you're laughing at a joke, your complete perception of time disappears for those few minutes or seconds, because you're in this kind of altered state, laughing. It's the same with shock. And surprise is also another trance state. So I use all of these all the time, depending on the client and the kind of problem. So I said to her, well, I'm able to help you. I'm willing to help you with these legs. I'd like to help you, and I'm very willing to help you do this. However, I don't want to talk to you anymore. In fact, I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of this session. Now, that's a strange thing to say to your client. You've built rapport, they've shared something, they've gone through their whole life with this problem, and then you've given them this kind of contradictory kind of answer. That you believe you can help them, you want to help them, but you're not going to talk to them. It's like, how do you deal with that? Where can she find the answer to that? It's not coming from outside. The confusion is outside. It's not coming from me. I'm not giving her the answer. The only place she can find an answer is by going inside her head and trying to understand that, to try and figure out what on earth I'm saying. So she goes into hypnosis. And when she goes in at that moment, you catch it, and then you encourage it to go deeper. That's what I did. She starts to go in, she's going in and going like, trying to figure out, this person's not going to talk to me, And then I just start talking to the legs. And so I said, I'd like to say to the legs, thank you very much for helping. I don't remember her name, but let's say it's Audrey. I said, thank you so much for helping Audrey. And now I'm doing something even more bizarre. I'm not blaming the legs. I'm thanking the legs for kicking. So she's going like, so where can she understand? She's having to go inside to make sense. So you're deepening the trance by causing even more confusion. So I'd like to thank you for kicking all these years. You must have had a damn good reason for kicking all these years. And it would be wonderful, if we can resolve this in some way, because I think it's wonderful that you care so much about her, that you've been kicking all these years. So it's like, what? So we're reframing the perception of the problem from being a problem to being something that's positive, that's been trying to help her. Now, if you think about that, if you discovered someone who you thought was actually attacking you, was actually trying to save your life, your whole perception of them would change. You might even love them and thank them for it. It's the kind of thing we're doing here. So thanking the legs for kicking for her. I said, I'd like you to put her into an even deeper trance. She's already in trance. So I now want the legs to hypnotize her. So I'm not even doing the hypnosis anymore. So I can say, so I said to the legs, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to allow her to become aware of her breathing slowing down. What's happening here? I'm not saying to her, your breathing is slowing down. I'm not even saying, you might like to notice whether your breathing is slowing down. I'm saying, I'd like you, the legs, to help her notice that her breathing's slowing down. You see, I've gone roundabout. So now the legs are hypnotizing her, not me. So what this does, of course, it creates a confusion, but also I'm now no longer kind of part of it. I'm just an observer of the process. The thing that's causing her to have the problem is now helping her go into hypnosis. And in addition to that, it's doing it in a way that will then resolve the problem. Can you see how we've got the problem to resolve the problem, if you like? And so I'm doing a hypnotic induction via the legs, and the legs are sending her deeper into trance. And so I then explained to the legs what we're going to do. I said, so I thank you so much. So I'm talking to her, literally facing down, because her eyes are closed. She can only hear my voice. She can't see me, but she can hear that my voice is being projected down to the legs because I'm exaggerating where I'm sitting. I'm leaning forward so she can hear the change in voice loci. She knows I'm talking to the legs. I'm not just sitting here making it up. I am actually talking to her legs. So thank you so much for kicking all these years. You must have had a really good reason for doing this. And I thank you for doing it, for wanting her to learn something. And it was very important and very appropriate that you did this all those years ago when she was so stressed and anxious about that job. Because you really wanted her to be able to do a good job, and you kicked so that she would be able to kind of think about work and make sure she did a good job the next day. And that was wonderful that you did that to help her. However, it became too difficult for her to do everything in the day because she was too tired. But you didn't know that. You were doing what you thought was right for her. And thank you so much for doing that. But I want to tell you something now. She quit that job. She quit that job after 2 weeks. But no one ever told you. So I'm now giving it out, to the legs. I'm not blaming the legs now for carrying on. I'm saying no one told you she quit the job. What's this about? Here's this guy talking to the legs saying nobody told you that she quit the job. Okay. Now, of course, it's all going into her unconscious mind, which is processing this. Said, but there's no longer any need to kick. She quit that job, whatever it was, 40 years ago. There's no longer any need for you to kick. And I said, but I think it would be good for you to kick one last time, that you understand this and that you agree that you don't need to kick anymore. So if you agree you don't need to kick anymore, I'd like you to give me a kick. Not literally. And her leg jerked just once. Left her in hypnosis to absorb everything we've been doing. Thanked the legs, brought her back, sent her home. every year for about 5 years, I would receive a postcard, I think from Mallorca, a couple from Mallorca. And it was addressed to me at my practice, and she'd write on it, alive and not kicking. So she'd either moved there or she'd gone on holiday there, and she sent me a postcard every year. And I thought, it's so nice to receive gifts. And I must admit, I sometimes ask for gifts. I think it's good to do that. You know why? It's not that you want to receive gifts, but you want them to think about what happened in the session. I have give me a second. Give me a second, okay? I'm back. Thank you for your patience. It's so professional, this videoing, isn't it? Look, camera crew, lights, sound people, producers. No, it's just me in my bedroom. No, not really. I've got this, look, I've got this kind of spooky kind of woo set behind me. Look, even got a matching purple heart. I get gifts all the time. This one I received about 4 years after I did a therapy session in Montreal on a course I was teaching there. And the lovely lady, she'd been diagnosed with cancer, and she was quite ill. And she loved to do knitting. And so I did some therapy with her, actually on the course, live on the course. And at the end of it, I said, you know, I always like feedback on how people are doing. So please let me know how you're doing, please. And I'd be very happy. You know, I said, you know, when I get some acknowledgement that you've done, that you've achieved what you've done, I know my heart has made a difference to your heart. So it's heart-to-heart work, something like that. I say that quite often. So 4 years later, I received this from the post from Canada. So postcards, it's good to have something come back. Also, I get some weird things. Prehistoric hand tools. Okay. But that was related to a client I'd helped whose grandfather was an archaeologist and had actually collected these hand tools. And he gave me 3 of these prehistoric hand tools. And they were from different periods. One was like 12,000 years ago. One was Neanderthal from about 50, 60,000 years ago, something like that. And one was literally like 900,000 years ago, almost 1 million years ago, in a very, very primitive hand tools. And I've treasured these. In fact, I became so interested in them, I started reading about, you know, prehistoric hand tools. Because when you hold something like that in your hand and your fingers and thumbs go into the shape of some prehistoric person who made that, and it fits your hand because they knocked those bits out so it's sharp and you could hold it. You've got a hand grip and your fingers go into the same places as some prehistoric person. It sends a shiver up your spine. It really does. It's like you're connecting with the past. So encourage your clients to send you presents, or just to let you know how you're doing. It's important to know how you're doing, right, in therapy, that you're doing a good job. And having that rapport where people come and see you, it's wonderful. Oh, I'll tell you, one of the greatest presents I ever had, okay, St. Anne's Hospital, a woman was going into labour, childbirth. A few days later, she was going to hospital to give birth. And she wanted some help with pain control. And so I did the session, and she was a friend of one of the students on the course. I did the session, and it went well. And 21 years later, I got an email or something from this woman that I didn't even remember her, to be honest. I didn't remember the session, I didn't remember her. Just to say that, oh, you helped me years and years ago and I'm coming to Thailand. Can we meet? I'd like to meet you and say thank you. So, oh, okay. So she turns up and she takes me out to dinner. And so we go out to dinner and there's her and there's her son. And I can't remember the son's name. But anyway, she said, this is my son. He's 21. He's having for his birthday. We've come to Thailand for his birthday. And I'm sitting thinking, yeah? And she says, this is the son I had when you helped me give birth. And so I brought him along to show you what you achieved, or what you helped me achieve. The present of seeing the son that I gave birth to after that session. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Makes you want to cry, right? Wow. That's amazing. And we've stayed in contact, her and I, since then. And she's come on some evenings when I've been teaching, and she brought her entire family to see me. Amazing when these things happen. Yes. And I got a certificate through the post from some woman that I'd helped on a course at Regent's College in London. It was a one-day course I taught, and there was about 500 people there, a lot of people. And there was I remember this client was on the stage, as a platform, and I was doing a therapy session, everybody watching. And it was funny because at that moment, she was in hypnosis, and I said, in a moment, your unconscious mind will give you a realization. You'll learn something that will help you with this problem. You'll really learn something at deepest level. Something like that, I said to her. And waiting, and the whole audience is like, you can hear a pin drop, it's quiet. And she's sitting there in hypnosis, and we're waiting like this. And then suddenly, there's this huge clap of thunder. Huge clap of thunder, where the windows shake. I'm just still in a trance like this. And my automatic response was to lift my arms and go, thank you. And the place fell into hysterics. It was amazing. And I've met people since then who were there and told me about that and how wonderful that was. Anyway, after that, I received a certificate through the post from her. And it said, this is to confirm that every year for the rest of, forever, every year forever, a tree will be planted in my name as a thank you for this woman's therapy. And that she'd actually put some money into some trust or something that would cover the cost of this. I don't know how it works. And that from then on, every year, a tree will be planted in my name. Wasn't it wonderful? When you have something like this, it says you're doing the right job. And these are the things that you'll remember one day. When you're lying on your deathbed, let's not get too morbid, but it'll probably happen one day, right? You'll be lying on your deathbed and you look back. The last thing you want is regret. You never want to look back with regrets and think, I could have done better. I could have done more. When you know you could have put in 100% and you didn't. So when you lie on your deathbed and you think back, and you say to yourself, wow, that was an amazing life. I made a difference, and I really couldn't have done any more. And you remember the things that people send you. What a wonderful way to let go of this world and move on to the next with that feeling. Keep that in your mind. Make that your future. Because by doing that and having that as your focus, you're going to help so many people as a therapist. Thank you for letting me talk about this. Thank you. Speak to you next time. Bye-bye.